Hey, good Thursday evening to you all. It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. I, of course, feeling good about the seeing and the being seen, am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you from an undisclosed location under the swamps of Central Florida. How are you? I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic evening, and greetings to you all. Wherever you may be and whatever condition you may be in. We have got a great show for you tonight. We have an awesome guest. He's been on the show before, but you might not have seen that one. So I brought him back, for you. Yeah, you didn't see it, did you? No, you didn't. You missed that one. I get it. No, it's fine. Well, he's back now. So now you have a chance. Now stay there and watch it, and you'll be able to see what an awesome guy this is. So Sky will be on in a few minutes. And of course, then tomorrow night, we will have our Friday night Gamma World game. Let's play some Gamma World, and we'll find out what has happened to the Seekers in the Shattered Lands of Gamma World. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Don't miss that one. Now, normally I would say, and Saturday, I'm not doing anything for you people, but I do have my considerations to take care of. So Saturday is the Nerd Council of Doom. That's going to be over on Dungeon Minister's channel. That's not going to be here. That's going to be on Dungeon Ministers, but I'm going to spam that link all over the place at the appropriate time, like it's going to be on this channel. But we're going to be over on Dungeon Ministers, so you can throw him supers and all kinds of stuff. He's got some cool stuff going on. Yang's got some cool stuff going on. We're going to hold forth on nerdy topics that are important to us. So that's happening Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll all stop by. So, and then Sunday, I'm not doing a thing. Sunday is Mother's Day, and I hope you will, whether you're a mom or whether you have a mom to visit, I hope you will take some time and enjoy Sunday. Or maybe you're just going to relax. Maybe you're like, that's, just enjoy the day, and then we'll start the madness up again on Monday. And that's in the future. So let's talk about the now. My guest tonight is a true Renaissance man. He is an artist. He is a writer. He has been a bouncer at a bar in Roppongi, Japan. And I really don't want to steal any of his thunder by telling his stories. We're going to bring him on and let him tell his stories. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest tonight, Skyler Hernstroom. Sky, how the hell are you, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, dude. It's good to see you, man. It's been...
It's good to see you.
Yeah. Well, let me just get this out of the way, not as a matter of business, but as a matter of great thanks. Thank you so much for creating the mascot for this year's Great Underground Online Gaming Convention. People loved it. We've shifted some merch, and I'll make sure the Dungeon Minister gets you your cut. But seriously, that was pretty cool. The tentacle bowl.
No, that was a lot of fun. And I got a mug downstairs.
Excellent. I appreciate that, man. I really do.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, and this wasn't just a wind up for the audience, there might actually be some folks out there who are unfamiliar with your work. I've got a couple of your books right here, and they are fantastic, by the way, folks. Avail yourselves of these. I should have had them out beforehand, but do avail yourselves of these. I've got The Eye of Sonu and Thune's Vision. Amazing pulp fantasy. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Scott.
Yeah, I started writing maybe 2014, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my 40s, pretty old. Um, I grew up reading Robert E. Howard, Jack Vance, Lovecraft, all the classics. I was raised on the classics. My dad had a giant paperback collection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually named for a man named P. Skyler Miller, who was a writer and an editor and a contemporary with Robert E. Howard, and they actually corresponded. And in some of the older Howard collections, you might find a introduction by P. Skyler Miller. And he wrote a couple books too, and he happened to be a friend of my father's, and I was named after him. So I just grew up in a house just stuffed to the gills with paperbacks, and just used to, as a kid, just go and look for all the Frazetta covers. And that's just sort of, and I can remember, and I read everything I could get my hands on, and I can remember my dad. I think I might have been reading Dragonlance or something like that, and he said,
Mm-hmm.
"Son, you got to read Jack Vance." And I got hooked on Jack Vance, who was a really interesting author, really interesting stuff that he did. And if you haven't encountered him yet, it'll probably it might blow your mind as to what fantasy is capable of, and his attention to language. He was a huge fan of P.G. Wodehouse, as am I, Jeeves and Wooster, and the language is very beautiful, and it's lush when it needs to be lush, and it's very curt and forceful when it needs to be curt and forceful, and it's just an absolute joy to read. And I got hooked on him, and just I don't know what happened. A friend of mine, I'd always thought, oh, someday I'll write a novel. Someday I'll write a novel. And a friend of mine wanted to do some short fiction for the BattleTech magazine of all things, and he said, "Let's write some short fiction." And I just started, and then it just went from there. And I got some stories in Kursova magazine, which everybody should check out, and a couple other things here and there, Heroic Fantasy Quarterly, and it was a really productive period. And from there, I got DMR Publishing, great guy Dave. He's really holding the flag, the banner for sword and sorcery. Got a collection with him, and I had so much stuff, and there's just not a lot of market, so I self-published a collection, and it was great. It was great to get it out there. It was great to people read it and get a positive response. But I hooked up with this guy Neil Durando, who set up Pylon Press, and he's a very, very, very knowledgeable individual. Just a deep well of knowledge about language and publishing and everything. So we got together, and he edited the Thunes Vision, and we got that new edition out, and kickstarted that and everything. And that's the one you're holding, and it felt really good. It was great to get it out self-publishing, and it felt even better to get a one with you know like a more professional treatment out. And there's some couple other little things in there. Um, and that it was just really satisfying. I was gonna show, like, I gave away all my copies.
Yeah,
So I gotta get some more copies.
you
for
did say,
myself.
I will say unabashedly, these were gifts from Sky. But guys,
Yeah.
let me tell you what, if you have what is it, Amazon Prime, not Amazon Prime, but the one where the one specifically for books on Amazon, and I can't remember what it's called. But right now, when I was looking for a good picture of Sky, and I just fell back to the one, you with the axe is like the best photo of you. right? Because
That's in my
you look
basement,
like
yeah.
you are ready to put on the banded mail and kick open the kobold lair and just start hewing heads. And I absolutely love it. Kindle Unlimited and Harmony Ginger, hello, thank you very much. It is wonderful to see you. But yeah, so I believe it's Thune's Vision is on Kindle Unlimited. So if you got one of those little electronic suckers, if you're one of those people that, like, for whatever reason you don't like the feel of a physical book in your hands, you have my pity. But you can get it on Amazon, and I highly recommend you do. These are amazing stories you have written here. Sky, let me tell you something, dude, and I'm not just blowing sunshine. Yes, you and I are friends. This is a little bit more than just, random cool guy that I want to interview on the show. If I could write like you, I could call myself an author. This is some good punchy pulp fantasy and science fantasy, and I mean that in absolutely the best way. I love these books, and you guys should get in on those. So
It's been it's
good.
Oh no, I just said it's been a wonderful experience writing, and just going for it. And I kind of like to keep myself, um I love to hang out and I love to talk to people. But when it comes to the writing, sometimes I really want to keep that intimate and private, and make sure that I have space to where when I'm doing it, I'm not imagining someone, oh, this is so corny, or oh, here we go again with the swords or something, just try to keep the space locked away where you can keep it pure.
I think your next compilation should be titled "Here We Go Again with the Swords." I'm just gonna. I don't know if you're taking votes or anything on that, but "Here We Go Again with the Swords" I think would be a great book title, and I would read that. But I kid. So kind of going that direction a little bit. Is there stuff that you write, things that are in the same vein? I'm not necessarily talking about getting into any deep personal intimacies, like like journal level stuff. Like, I never want this to be seen. But as a writer, do you find yourself writing things as a mental exercise that you will never publish, or you don't want to publish, but it's still what you would call good writing? Do you do that? I guess it's like lifting,
No, it sounds stupid, or maybe it's like a cop out answer, but I do that in my head. Like I'll pursue ideas in my head that I know I'm not going to bother to take to any end. And sometimes I make a lot of notes, not any kind of outline or anything, but these things always start as very sort of vague impressions and things you see, and you just see them, and then live with it a while and think about it, and then it just starts to move, and it's kind of like dreamlike. I have occasionally started things, and like I some of my friends are very, I guess you would say, literary, and hang out with people that read a lot and a lot of different kind of things, and I have occasionally put down to paper something, just as an experiment, maybe like what you would call literary fiction, whatever that's supposed to mean, and like just knowing that I'm not going to finish this, and so I've done that before, and but for me, like, it just I find it very hard to not to sort of break away from genre fiction. It's like these fantasies, these um men in armor and beautiful women and sorcerers and monsters and all these things. They in a lot of ways, they're a pathway to very deep truths and very deep and real experiences. And I just can't give them up, you know.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, and I think regardless what your end aim is, I feel as a right now, granted, when I say as a writer, I don't write prose, I write Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I write adventure modules, but as a writer, I think the more you feel what you're writing, the more you immerse yourself in it, the better it is for the reader. I mean, there are library shelves and bookstores filled with dry histories that are compilations of information that honestly no one will ever read. You could probably make a life's work of reading compiled lists of numbers and charts and tables about the Second World War and come away no better off than if you had read the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by Schreier. And Schreier was there. He was there when it was going on. He wrote, this happened today. I saw this today. This was in the Berlin Post today, and so on and so on and so on. And there was someone who lived and wholly embraced what he was writing. So I think your approach is the one that makes things palatable, because if you believe in what you're writing, it'll come across in what you're writing, I feel.
Yeah.
And very much I can very feel that personal touch in both of the anthology volumes that you got there. And a question here from Jay Tyler that dovetails nicely into that. Do you use music or art to inspire your writing?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about Frazetta a little bit, but I'm very partial to a lot of the before that, like the golden age of illustration, and like things like Hal Foster, and of course I'm blanking on some of the names, but a lot of these classic illustrators and painters. And when I write, I do usually sort of hit on, you get stuck on like a track, and it will and I usually listen to a lot of metal or doom metal or like weird dungeon synth and more ambient and stuff like that, and it does end up very much informing the work, and sort of uh like a shot of steroids or something to it. Like there's this doom metal band called Conan, um and thankfully they're good enough to get away with that. But they had a song called Battle in the Swamp, and it's this very, very driving, very heavy, and doom metal's known for being, very heavy, and a lot of times slow and a lot of down tuning. And in I wrote the story, the Challengers Garland, and anyone could read it. But if you're familiar with the stuff that we grew up with, you'd recognize it as a sort of riff on the Death Dealer, the knight that serves the King of Death. Has a dream that he is fighting a champion in white armor. So he goes to, the journeys to the land of the living to find this champion and fight him. And there's the Black Knight, the Knight of Death, is unsettled, which is an unusual thing for an undead knight to be. And on the other side of that, the champion of good, uh, i- he wakes up in the middle of the night. He's having dreams about facing off against the Black Knight, and he talks to his wife, and he's starting to get on in years, and he can sense his own mortality, and um, how irritating that is to be this incredible warrior and feel yourself getting slower and feel yourself feeling time catch up. So they have a battle, and the battle ranges all over the countryside, and they finally end up in a swamp, and they're knee deep in the muck, battering each other, both in heavy plate, just battering each other, and just the song really helped me. It put me in a headspace, and it just had to come out in that story. And I don't, if I had never heard that song, I would have written that story, but that battle would have been gone different for sure. It's weird, like you could probably even look at brainwaves and things like that, but absolutely use that stuff to put yourself in places, and it's definite aid to that. Trying to think of another specific example. People make fun of me. My friends make fun of me because a lot of the stories the protagonist dies. But
it is. I don't want to say a recurring theme, but it
yeah,
just everyone. If you've already got these books in your Amazon cart, just be aware. But it's good stuff regardless.
yeah, but and Saga of Aolf, which is a story about what happens to a guy when he gets Odin's spear. I was listening to a lot of heavy stuff
Yeah.
with that. And the ending is really, I guess I shouldn't spoil it. People are like, got it in the cart. They're gonna go, oh, never mind, you just spoiled it. But the ending is extremely heavy. Like it.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. But definitely music and art has a huge effect on it. It's obviously writing is different than painting, but in a lot of ways, it's all the same. Everything is so intertwined. So I do definitely, I think I'm just very, I don't know, sensitive to it, or just as everybody is. But absolutely use all that stuff, all grist for the mill.
Right on. And I gotta say, just me to you, and you audience members can come along for the ride on this comment if you want. But yeah, the story with Odin's spear, what was looping in my head when I was listening to that was No Quarter by Zeppelin.
I was just hoping you were gonna. I was like, put some Zeppelin. Yeah.
Absolutely, sure. Man. Because that, like, there's so much, and yeah, we all know Led Zeppelin cribbed every American blues man, but seriously, dude, No Quarter is like the prototype doom metal song.
Oh yeah.
And I just, when I was reading that story, I was like, holy crap, this is it. Yeah. Definitely this is it. And I loved it for that. I absolutely loved it for that. So
want to create things that people would find worthy of airbrushing onto the side of an Econoline.
Exactly, man. And that joke has permeated through this show and my mindset, and that is, would I want that airbrushed on the side of a van?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, if it even makes it to that point in conversation, the answer would be yes. But Jay Tyler loves him some Rush. Rush is good too. But yeah, no, music definitely, like, I can put on, I can put on physical graffiti just on a loop and start writing, and that's my stuff there. But let's get back to you, because I'm afraid we could get into some serious navel gazing on my part, which is not why we're here. If it's not a hackneyed question, tell me a little bit about your writing process, like story germ to the end submit.
Well, it does. It starts with like a visual in my head, and like we talked about the Challengers Garland. I just saw the Black Knight, and I saw there's a scene where in this fantasy world, and the convention is that if you're an, you have the good guys and the bad guys, or side A and side B, or whatever, however it is. If you're a knight and you have business on the other side, you usually, to fight another knight in single combat, you can cross over enemy territory if you're wearing a flower garland.
Right.
So I had this image of the Black Knight in his plate with the wisps of ash coming from in between the joints of the armor, and his red glowing eyes, and bending to get a flower garland from like a little village girl. And in the story, she's blind. So, and then it just sort of, things just sort of take off from there. In The Tragedy of Thurn, which is a story in the Eye of Sonu that was written just for that, just to sort of get something exclusive in there. I had this bad guy, and when you're in the middle of something, if you were alive in the time of Genghis Khan, it must have just seemed like the end of the world. But from 1,000 years distance, he was just he was a greedy guy. That's it. He wanted to conquer. He wanted stuff. He wanted gold. He wanted to win, and that's all very relatable. So in The Tragedy of Thurn, I had this bad guy, and I thought, what is just the most, this vision of him, and like, so he's like your typical warlord that's gathering all the evil around him, and all the bandits and outlaws, and then all these things that live in the swamp and at the base of mountains and caves, and they're all just drawn to him, and they're just rolling through civilization, destroying everything in their path. And but that's not nearly enough for him, because he gets these sort of in his dreams, these nameless gods are talking to him, and they've planted the idea that the goal of everything is for these guys is to actually wipe out all life, so that there'll be an end to everything, it'll be finished, and it'll just be the wind turning the temples and libraries and everything into so much sand after 10, 20,000 years. So it started with him, and that I put him in a city, and these avatars show up, these warriors, good warriors and bad warriors, and sorcerers are a third thing. And we play D&D, and it's interesting to imagine magic, and a lot of that comes from Vance, how D&D is
right.
treats
The Vancian system, and the storing the formulas in one's head.
And so traditionally, sorcerers are a pretty shady lot, but as they've evolved in fantasy fiction. There's good ones and bad ones and everything. So, I got these sorcerers in the city. It's a learned place with all these beautiful towers and these sorcerers. And so, how are these guys going to deal with him? Because he's trying to co-opt them. The villain is trying to co-opt these guys into his mission to wipe all life off the face of the earth. And then it led to this hero Thurn, who is in this dream world, and it's this beautiful estate on top of a mountain, and they just feast and make love and listen to music all day and night. And it turned, well, I guess I won't spoil it. But to as far as process goes, it comes from these pictures in my head, and they there's a certain, they get imbued with a certain sort of urgency, and then they imagine things happening, and it just sort of snowballs from there. And I've been talking about the more sort of poetic, the Dunsany, those types of stories, but it can also be very sort of flippant and humorous. Like I wrote this novella, Images of the Goddess, which is all about there's a ridiculous twist in there, a joke that I'm sure most people can see coming, but the whole thing is just absurd, and it's just this ends up being this crazy adventure with this acolyte from this ridiculous cult that worships the goddess, like this all male cult that lives on top of this windswept crag, and you have this other character who's like a ridiculous man of the world guy that's thinks very much of himself, but always seems to wind up behind the 8 ball, and then a woman step warrior, and they end up going on this quest, and all this just ridiculous stuff happens. And but it's the same process. You think of these characters in this ridiculous situation, and then everything just unfolds from there. And it's funny because we were gonna talk about it, but that process and that stuff is so it's very, I don't want to say taxing, but it just requires a lot of time and a lot of thought. And it's been difficult for me lately with all my other obligations, and
sure.
and it's definitely reduced my productivity. The last thing I have out is in this zine, Sword Worship, which is put together. There's this metal band, Eternal Champion. They're super cool, and the front man, Jason Tarpey, who you should get in touch with, is a just like absolutely carrying the flag for sword and sorcery and Robert E. Howard and everything. And he's just this totally awesome dude. He lives in Texas, and his day job is he's a blacksmith. It's like, man, the dude's so cool. But he's got this kick-ass band, Eternal Champion, and they've got a couple two albums and some other stuff out, and like they'll go tour Europe and everything. And we had a mutual friend, and he he's like, man, you got to talk to this guy, you got to email this guy, and so we got a correspondence and really super cool friendship out of it. But he puts together these zines, and I'm working on a novel, but I thought how cool it would be if I did something in a more serial format. So starting in this issue of Sword Worship is this thing, the Song of Torin.
Yeah,
and and I got to send you a copy of this.
Well, tell me where I can purchase it, and I will make sure that there's proper recompense.
I think I'm gonna feel like such a jerk. It might be. I'm gonna have to look. It might be sold out, but I'll look into that. But if you Google like sword worship, eternal champion, or sword worship zine, it comes up. And there's a couple of places that sell it. But when I get enough chapters in here, I'll publish it. The whole thing is a book. And this one is a very. I have this character named Torin, and I usually like to go right into it, and I don't like. It's so annoying when you're watching a movie and like they do a close up on the villain, and all of a sudden there's a big flashback where the villain's in fourth grade and someone knocks his lunch tray over or something, and it's
Right.
just like I don't need all that backstory, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you show that he's a bad guy, you have him doing something bad, like I'm satisfied, you know. Um, but even as I say that, so in this one, I wanted to write it in a sort of older mode where you go through this long journey with this guy, and so the story starts before his birth, and in this it's a like a civilization. It is sort of that Hyborian conceit that this all happened before recorded history.
Right.
So you have Atlantis has fallen, and you have this civilization in what we might recognize or think about as England, and
Mhm.
you have all these petty kings, and one of their warriors is sent on this strange mission, and he has to pass through a forest where that's occupied by elves. So and things just sort of go from there. But that I'm really looking forward to doing this one in installments, and I think it's the way for me to um circumvent that grind. Like I'm working on a novel now, and I'm about 25, 30,000 words in, and
Mhm.
it's great, but it's just I'm pretty comfortable in the novella format, and usually like to write longer short stories. And the novel's trucking along just fine. It just gotta, like sit down and do it. The novel's going to be a blast. It's a little bit more. Uh, it's sort of a Vancian sort of jaunt where there's a conclave of wizards. We can imagine this, 200,000 years in the future, some craziness. And
Mhm.
this one particular ambitious wizard desires to possess all of a catalog of spells, and but it's sort of interspersed throughout a whole bunch of different works. So his scheme to get that is to sell the other wizards in the conclave of an idea of forming a communal library. So he manages to get this going, and they're going to construct this elaborate library on this unoccupied plane. And
Mhm.
the only way that the other wizards can be talked into this, because they're naturally a mistrustful lot, is they agree to have an independent sort of third party agent to oversee it. And so to recruit this agent, they wind up going into this town where there's a bunch of guys about to be executed, and one of them's this barbarian from one of the northern areas, and they just dragoon him into doing it, and they ward him with all sorts of spells and things so that he can't attack them, you know, and
Right.
he's proof against magic. He has all these protections on him and everything, and so it's all his adventures and dealing with the wizards and everything, and he's in the village and gets involved in the sort of the life and the politics of the village, and of course the whole time, he's not a very willing agent,
Just
and
enough character
I always love always love the idea of to me, sorcerers need to have imps to serve them. So there's, this whole giant subset of imps running around doing all these menial tasks for these wizards, and it turns out they have their own interests and motivations, and that's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun writing that. So that'll be this is going to be a definite good time for this one. Like these it's I don't want to give the whole plot away, but the
Sure.
library as it's being constructed is assaulted by this army of these horrible like insect men.
Mhm.
Um and the barbarian has to rally the imps to fight them off. So there's this giant big battle. Um then like it yeah, I don't wanna I could just tease the whole thing all night. But so I'm talking about how hard it is to write. It's been the last 2 or 3 years, it's been easier to draw.
Yes. Now we have seen
Yeah.
some of your work. You got over onto Twitter, and some of the Frug comics are over there, and they're
Yeah.
pretty darn good. We were talking about those earlier, and
Mhm.
this was this was good stuff to see. If you could put that up on screen, as I don't have any. Oh, you hold it up better than that, So, Frug, and it's it's like a Von Bode kind of feel, and I absolutely love it. You put some of that out on Twitter, and because I know you have all this free time, Sky, you're just kicking your feet up. Hey, Jeremy Rule, thank you very much. Just kicking your feet up and relaxing and doing nothing. But uh, so what of Frug? Is this just a little bit of fun you're having, or are you gonna go
Yeah.
with like
I just
published stories of Frug
well, I've always
adventures?
I've always loved comics. We grew up reading them and stuff, and I've always been into you're talking about like Epic magazine and all that weird stuff, and
Mhm.
heavy metal and things like that. And I've always loved Von Bodet's art and Ralph Bakshi and all that stuff. And I
Uh-huh.
think must have been during the lockdown. I've always liked to draw, but like I never really tried to do anything with it. And over the lockdown, I was like, what the hell? Let's just see if I can make some stupid comics. And Frug is it's a post-apocalyptic tale, and Frug, as far as he knows, is the last person who's not trapped in the Zookverse. And because humanity, at least in North America, has been subjugated by Lord Zook, who has everyone in these virtual reality helmets. So Frog wanders the wasteland with his mutant friends, looking for physical media, DVDs and whatnot to learn about life before everyone was trapped in the Zookverse. And Frog is pursued by Zook bots and Griblies and all sorts of stuff. And while he's trying to score DVDs and generally just have a good time. So that's been a lot of fun doing that. And eventually when I have enough, I'll get with Neil and we'll put them together in a collection. But in the
Good.
meantime, it's fun to yeah, if you just yeah, like they've popped up here and there. It's a strange time with comics and everything. So, but I mean, the
Yeah.
easiest and funnest thing to do is to just put them on Twitter. Finally settled on that, and
Well, I
so
put, put them on Twitter. Get it. This is I tell all my artist contacts. Look, don't be afraid to put your stuff out there for free. I will buy it. Okay, you definitely got a sharper me. I love the Frug comics, and I'm looking forward to more of those coming out. So thank you for listening to your heart. I do have a couple of audience questions for you here. If you can just touch on these
yeah.
briefly, as folks have been patient waiting. Michael Mertig wants to know: have you written anything for D&D?
No, oddly enough, a really good friend of mine, he writes a lot of games. He's a very prolific game guy. He runs Four Color Studios, which he got to start doing supers. Like he my friend Scott, he's the kind of guy that if it doesn't exist and he wants it, he'll make it. So he's a huge comic book guy, huge supers guy. So he wrote a supers miniatures game. And from there he's just written so many other games, tons of other games. And many years ago, he wrote a D20 supplement for this floating island full of goblins. It was really cool. He called it Tyronus. And I I wrote some like fluff and background fiction for that, and that was a lot of fun. I haven't written um, anything else besides just bits and pieces there, helping him out with his games. But I did another thing that's in the works. Yet another thing to talk about that you can't get your hands on. Is I have written a role playing game that is a post apocalyptic game. It's set in this giant mansion. And
That's right.
after humanity has disappeared, the rats have awakened, undergone a evolutionary shift, and are now conscious and sentient. And in this role playing game, you take the role of a rat, a number of rats that all live in the same nest, and you try to survive and navigate the rat society and survive outside as you try to obtain things and otherwise sort of advance yourself. And that game, me and a friend are trying to work out sort of the last, the early phase of play testing, and it'll probably go through a lot of changes. And if there is a spot, I hope to get to run it was really hoping to shoot for the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention for 2025. I
Your
think that,
spot is reserved.
yeah, that would be a
Name the
great
day,
place
name the
to,
time. You
no
have a
better
spot.
place to get that out. That game all started with let's see here. That all started with the whole vibe of the game is I did this sketch of a rat
Uh-huh.
with a bottle cap shield and a spear with like a nail on it. And like I made that sketch and I just stared at it. I'm like, this, I got to do something with this. So
Yeah.
like that's where that came from. So I growing up when I did with The Secret of Nim and everything else, like sentient rats is programmed deep into me. So this game it's uh like for task resolution it's D6 pulls, but it's designed to be pretty quick. I'm just the aforementioned friend Scott Pyle, like I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I've played his game, so I
Sure.
use a variation of some of his mechanics, but I've got very very deep things like encounter tables and weather, and trying to get some of those details, those evocative details that we all take for granted with AD&D in there. And it's a pretty lethal system right now, and we'll see how it emerges from playtesting.
Well,
But
excellent.
what,
No, I was just going to say you had mentioned that to me in email a while back, and
yeah,
I'm glad the question was asked because
mhm,
I got to remember to ask Guy about this.
yeah,
Thank you for touching on
mhm.
that. And another question is, I think we kind of already answered this, but if you had anything else to add to it, that's fine. Jay Tyler asked, do you route out an outline or notes, or just write from just stream of consciousness sort of thoughts?
Yeah, I have to do. I can't do outlines. I actually, when I let go and I have such a good time and I get something in the end. I did grind out maybe 30 or 40,000 words for a novel a couple years ago, probably more than a couple now. But I outlined the whole thing, and I started writing it, and I really hammered it out and had this outline, and I really liked the idea. I love the idea. I might revisit it. But after I started, reading it, I'm like, this is completely lifeless, and I just walked away from it.
Mm.
So I mean, everyone's got a trunk novel or two. Some people, a lot of them, and the more blood you shed, the better. Um,
Yeah.
but I have a very difficult time writing from an outline. Like with the novel, I have a pretty vague idea of what will happen, but I know what will happen. And just recently, you got to a point in the novel, and I'm like, I need something else here, and like, I just sat on it for a little bit, and that something else just eventually popped into my head. But if I had already outlined it all, you know, I'd probably be in the same boat as before, where I'm like, there's just not enough not enough juice in this thing. But
Yeah. I
some of the yeah, and I don't there, maybe it goes without saying, but it's not like, if someone wants to write and they got that bug and they want to try it out, and the way they want to work from an outline, and that's what feels good to them, then they're right. So um if someone wants to use an outline and that's the way it feels good, it feels right, then they should absolutely use an outline.
Okay, so that leads me to a question for you. The great Robert E. Howard once wrote that he wrote the first story of Cull when he was sitting at his typewriter and he couldn't come up with a good story idea. He was racking his brain. He had set Conan aside for a while, and that Cull walked up behind him and said, "Don't you dare turn around. You just start writing what I tell you." And that he spent all night feverishly writing with Cull pacing back and forth, dictating the story to him. And then he knew if he turned around, he'd hew his head off and that sort. And of course, Howard was a Howard, of course. How
Yeah,
much of
yeah.
that he actually believed happened, and he just made up because he thought it was good and punchy for weird tales, we'll never know. But and then there's another case. I don't really want to say on the other end of the spectrum, because I think a lot of people tend, and I want your opinion on this, a lot of people tend to think of Tolkien and Howard as being like vast. There's like this huge gulf of difference between the two. And I actually don't, for reasons that probably would keep us here all night discussing.
Mhm.
But Tolkien, I remember reading the introduction to the Lord of the Rings the first time when I was a kid, and it was such a fascinating statement by Tolkien, where he talked about he left off writing the Lord of the Rings for a while, and the way he described it, I stood at Balin's tomb with Gimli, and that's where I
Yeah,
left off. And the mental imagery of putting yourself in the work and the characters speaking to you and saying, "No, Sky, write this way." Any sort of spiritualist Falderall completely aside, when I ask this, do you feel that in your work? Do you feel yourself speaking to and being spoken to by your characters as a driving force for your literary creativity?
absolutely. And sometimes you're seeing things through their eyes, sometimes you're watching them. And like it's very affecting. I wrote this Afon and the Priestess, and it and the whole thing is part of this sort of cosmic cycle, and like there's things in that story that like I almost like I put them in there, but like the sort of the full implication of what had happened, like I didn't put in there because I didn't want to overburden the reader. But the main character Antone, he goes through this journey and sees these things, and then his purpose is done, and he's not fundamentally changed by anything that's happened. He played his role, and then his role is finished, and in this sort of the epilogue, like he's a step warrior, a raider, not at all a good person. But in the epitaph, it mentions that he's felled by an arrow to the neck. And like, I don't felt like I wrote that. I put the words on the paper, but I saw it first, and I didn't. I didn't sit there like, how should I wrap this up? What happens to this guy? Like, I saw it, you know what I mean? And that's just how your subconscious works, because I think behind the scenes our brains are sitting there with compass and leveler and the architecture and everything, and they're figuring it all out. And then I just see what's placed in front of the curtain. So Howard was being Howard and having a good time as Howard had, but there's a little ounce of truth to what he was talking about. And I don't think Tolkien is such an insanely intelligent person with that absolutely insane education, doesn't get enough credit for it. But he was the same. He had the same vibe going. Like, I don't, he had, pages and upon pages and notes and languages and maps and all that stuff, but he didn't know what was going to happen until he put it on the page. So I think they're much more alike than they are different.
Very much so. Very much so.
And one was West Texas, and the other one was Oxford or Cambridge or whatever it was.
Right. And I think that there's an oft overlooked passage when Gandalf is describing his journey up the endless stair, and he talked about nameless horrors in the depths, things that had been there since before the light of the two trees of Valinor illuminated the earth. So I think Tolkien maybe had just a touch of weird horror that he wanted to, just a tiny sprinkle of it that he put in there, and that was lovely. That was lovely to read. So I absolutely appreciate that creative process, and I've talked about this before. I've sat down to paint miniatures, and this is silly, but I have, and you can believe me or not, I've sat down to paint miniatures and been all into, I am finally going to paint this warrior. I'm going to paint this warrior, and he's the one I'm going to paint. And I get out all my paints that I want to use, and I'm standing at the shelf looking for the particular miniature that I'm going to paint. And one will literally catch my eye, and it's almost as if it says, no, paint me instead. Take me over there and paint me. And I will throw myself into hours of painting for that one, having never touched the one that I intended to, because the other one spoke to me. So I absolutely get it. I get that. Now you had cautioned me, you had warned me and given me some forewarning about this. So you had said there was something you wanted to ask me, and I admit I'm in the dark. So what was it that you had wanted to ask me?
I have like a couple little questions and like one big fat question. We touched on it at all. Like, I caught a bit of that, like with the latest I don't even know what they call it, misstep from or corporate overlords.
Oh, right.
And I don't want to get into it, but like, we grew up in a time when all this stuff was getting made and all this stuff was going on, and and it was all sort of organic, Now that's not to say that they weren't trying to make money, like Gygax was definitely trying to make money.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it was all like all people with ideas, and they were making stuff. And then we go through this long process and we arrive at this place where the people with the keys to all this stuff are just like, they're not cut from the same cloth, And
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about like necessarily ideology or anything like that, but like, and now this sort of everything is lame and commodified and like, this used to love going to Walden Books or something like that and trying to figure out what to get and handing your money over the counter, and that was all perfectly groovy. But now you get to this place where no, they don't want to sell you anything. They just want you. They want to turn you into like a blood bank, for a vampire, and just so they can just dribble some wealth out of you every so often, and it's so freaking lame, man. And but the irony of it is like, but we don't even need them anymore. We
No.
don't. It's all out there, man. Like you don't. If you were of a mind, you could get all the stuff you wanted and not pay anything, or just pay a pittance on eBay for used stuff. Like
Yeah.
AD&D, and there are tons of games, tons of good games, but like you could play AD&D for the rest of your life.
Oh, unquestionably.
And like, so I just want to ride this wave, man, where we're becoming, players and makers and users and everything, and not consumers anymore. Like it's over, um, I'm just so tired of brands, and we grew up with all this stuff, and like I've got like my sort of holy grail stupid toy nostalgia collectible thing. Let me see if you even heard of this thing.
Okay.
That Clay company DAS made a advanced Dungeons and Dragons set with like molds, so you could put your colored clay in there.
I have actually
Google it, man.
heard of AD&D. Okay. All right. I'm gonna bring this up here. Let me see. Molds. All right. Let's see. Oh, right there. I got one. Okay, let me open, and I'm going to share this with you guys out there in the audience. So let's zoom this in. It's already kind of a low res picture, and I apologize to you guys in the audience, but you gotta see this. This is share screen. There. Is this the clay mold you're talking about?
Man, that thing is awesome. Like, so like the paradox here where like I would love to have that stupid thing. Do you know what I mean? Like they I don't know enough about the business side, Gygax, TSR, everything. They licensed all that stuff. And we're obviously pretty liberal with the licenses, and they're
there were quite a bit of oddball things. I think there was a wood burning kit. There was very, very, very briefly before Gary finally stepped in and said, what what the frick are we doing? There was needlepoint. You could buy TSR needlepoint kits. I don't know that they released any Dungeons and Dragons patterns, but there are TSR needlepoint kits that were sold. I don't think they got into wizards and demons and that sort of thing, pattern kits, but they were buying small hobby companies as quickly as they could, or licensing stuff to them. And there's the evidence that there's one other on that website, and I want to see if let's see. All right, let me bring this one over here and add it. Let's see. Gotta go through the whole process again. Present, share screen. As convenient as StreamYard is, sometimes it's just darned inconvenient. And let's see. So yeah, that's
man.
Hey, you got you have some Dave Trampier are cut along dotted lines to accessorize figures. Well, I certainly will. Use your mini squish paints to color your many creations. So there you go. That's all you need, man. Just some modeling clay, and there you go. Jay Tyler says D&D modeling clay, fun, very much so. But yeah, that I had not heard of that. Thank you, Sky. You have brought something new to my attention there.
Outstanding. That
is wild. Did you have when you were a kid? Did you have it was Monogram Models had the Dungeons and Dragons? They were like plastic recasts of the lead miniatures, and then there were play sets. There was Orc War and Dungeon Adventurers. They were these vinyl kits. Yeah, that was
stuff. Yeah, those things were awesome. Yeah,
that was that was an easy way to get lots of miniatures when you were a kid. Just $14.99, and you got a box with like 20 miniatures in it. Good stuff. TXG has a question for you. He says, Frog reminds him of Wormy in old issues of Dragon. Did this have any influence on you?
Yeah, absolutely. What was it? Just looking out for right now. In fact, I was going to, let me see if I can find it. We talked about some heavy stuff when I jacked my jaw about the writing a lot, and I was curious what your experience was back in the day with Dragon magazine.
It was pretty lean. I only had issues of Dragon when a friend would bring them over, but I remember like a guy that we had played D&D with. He was in high school. He didn't play every weekend. He ended up leaving like a treasure trove of D&D stuff at my house for it felt like weeks, but it was probably only maybe a couple of weeks or something like that. But I must have dug through every book he had, every magazine. And I remember the one that stuck with me was an issue of Dragon that had the ecology of the piercer. It was one of those great ecology of articles, and it had the ecology of the piercer issue of Dragon magazine. And then I grabbed another one later, and I was shocked because I didn't realize that TSR was trying to expand out into a general, well, we're just going to cover all bases. And there was a battle mech design in the mid to late 80s. They had a custom battle mech in there, and then some like a description for a Space Marine unit or something like that. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff in Dragon that I enjoyed, but I never had a massive collection of Dragon, which we were talking about this before the show, the Dragon magazine collection. And now you can get them, the PDFs, you can pretty much just get them on Anarchive or the archive.org. So I don't think Wizards of the Coast really attempts to enforce it. I guess if you push their legal department hard enough, they might. But they did when I picked up the CD collection in the 90s, I realized what I'd missed out on. I'd played a lot of D&D, not with a lot of Dragon, but yeah, getting the issues of Dragon, it was like lights on, reading Wormy and Snarf Quest and all that stuff. Some of it sadly unfinished, like Gary's story, the Gnome Cache never got finished, and of course Dave Trampier had his issues and left the magazine, and we never got a conclusion to the Wormy story arc or anything like that. But there was so much good in those that I both rediscovered and discovered anew back in 98 or 99 when that set came out.
My whole purpose in playing D&D is from my favorite issue as a kid, and like I got a nice copy on eBay, but I have my tattered copy behind me, and it's from a little bit later. Well, it depends on how old you are, but it's this particular dragon that has this article about castles, and all I want to do is get a fighter to the point where he can get the Little Fang stronghold. That's it. Like,
hell yeah.
It's this cool ass castle, like you imagine it on like the top of a small mountain or something. And it, like, when I was getting this, I didn't have anybody, I wasn't playing, I just would get the magazine and just imagine playing. And this castle, man, I just got obsessed with it. I thought that was wild.
Yeah. That what issue is that in?
That is 145.
Let's see.
I got to figure out if there's like a Wormy archive.
There used to be a big fan of Wormy back in the day, who had a full archive and some fan art. Some fans tried to sort of, get that going.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, well, this is interesting. This is actually on Wizards of the Coast website, if you can believe it. Dragon 145 is right there.
Oh, wow.
Your home is your castle.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. That is
Little Fang. That castle is just amazing.
Yeah.
I did a sketch of it and I can't find it.
Oh, shucks.
Well, it wasn't all that much of it. It's just a little quick pencil rendering based on the diagrams. It wasn't like a 50-hour pen and ink or something like that.
Right. So what is your I know your time nowadays, as we were talking about that, the amount of free time you have is kind of limited. But what is your thought on domain level play? Like, would you, let's say all things are perfect, you've got a nanny, you've won the lottery, you have, you can take an entire how many ever hours a week to play D&D. What is your feeling? Is it the guy with the wooden shield and the spear and the leather armor and 5th level is a distant dream, or do you want to get all the way up the 9th level, attract a body of followers, clear a hex, establish a stronghold, or is it something in between, or is it neither?
I think my heart always gravitates toward low level play. It's always just more exciting and lethal. But I am absolutely interested in the larger stuff, like especially as you're talking about clearing hexes and stuff like that. I think one oh, you can tell me how off the mark this is, but higher level play requires more from everybody on the table, but especially the DM. And like that's like you got to have a really um special group to pull that off. And like you've been in it for a minute and you've got the experience, but uh I can remember how intimidating even looking at like those last couple boxes in the Beckme,
Yeah.
like which I don't know how many people played those, but uh yeah, and like always there were so many games back in the day. um I'm trying to remember like even some of the Avalon Hill ones that had like a fantasy spin on them.
Hmm.
But the domain level play is very exciting, and especially it's a different sort of time commitment from the player. It's a worse sort of time commitment from the DM probably. Um, but a friend of mine is trying to put together a game set in the Armored Trooper Votoms world, and he's excited about adding some domain elements to it. So hopefully, in the next couple months, I'll have the it'll probably be just like an email or two from to him every week, which is something I could definitely manage. But
Yeah.
to take like either like a resistance cell leader or like a state security operative, like real domain level. So that sounds pretty cool. What kind of like crazy campaign? Can you recall any big campaigns from your youth where like things just got completely bonkers out of control? Until like the players just started levitating off the table to become demigods and stuff. Or
I, playing D&D, no. We were generally, it was, we felt lordly when we hit 6th level, and then Mark, our DM, would, send in the dragon or trick someone
Mhm.
into uttering Orcus name, and it was just like push the big reset on the campaign.
Yeah.
I will say that as far as quote unquote high level characters go, not in Dungeons and Dragons, but I did play a very long Mech Warrior, first edition Mech Warrior
Oh wow.
campaign in '89. We must have played. Well, I can tell you, we played until Desert Storm kicked off, because
Wow.
one of the people in the apartment that the game master lived in. There were 3 guys, and they rented an apartment together. He got called up. His unit got called up for
Wow.
Operation Storm, and that was a third of the rent just walked out the door. Boys,
Mhm.
it's been fun, but so we played from like the spring of 1989 until the summer of 1991
Wow.
and or 1990. And we played often enough. We'd play 2, sometimes 3 nights a week, and that was a game where stuff would be going on. Like one guy might say, "Hey, I'm taking off my my mech warrior is going to go fight on Solaris and try and win more credits and up his skill
Wow.
level." And that sort of thing. And so that might happen during the week. And then, that player would come back. It was a very living campaign.
Mhm.
And we got to the point where we had a pretty large mercenary unit with an armored component and a drop ship to our name and a jump ship, which if you know your battle tech, those are
Mhm.
super rare. That's having a jump ship in battle tech is like saying, my AD&D character has a silver dragon at his beck and call.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so that was probably the most gonzo. We're commanding units of troops rather than just Well, we scavenged a semi truck and used the sheet metal to make new armor with. Hopefully, it'll hold up when we go up against some equally beaten up road warrior type mechs. We played that campaign a long time. Unfortunately, being the forever DM and the guy carrying the torch and sword and flag for AD&D, I rarely, if ever, get a chance to play. And the last long-term game, I think it was 8 sessions. My buddy Dan ran AD&D, and he ran Keep on the Borderlands and did it an absolutely excellent job. But that was up to just like 4th level, and then my wife had been in hospital, so Dan was stepping up to run the game. And when he was ready to let go of the tiller, that was it. So unfortunately, I have never gotten the castle and the pet beholder, the 25 strength and all that. So that unfortunately has not.
I've known guys that I know one group of guys that they've been like, I know a couple of them, but like they all have known each other and they've been playing together for like 30 years. But I remember back, and this must have been in the 2000s, and maybe this will ring a bell for somebody out there, but I think it was in either Dragon or Dungeon magazine. There was some sort of campaign that was called like the Worms or the Conquering Worms or the Cult of the Worms or
Council of Worms, Path of Worms, something like that.
Like that. And my friends were playing in it, and they were playing it in pretty high level. And like at first I was like, oh man, I wish I could have gotten in on that. But like every time they talked about it, they were all miserable. Like, because like it was very high level play, everything was very high stakes, and like when you start a game and everyone's first level, and like if a member of your party is sort of antisocial, or occasionally get people in these games that just love to be the spoiler, and but if you'd known the guy if you grew up with the guy, whatever, you let him play. But they were all just miserable, and every time we'd meet once a week, and they chew over the game, and like they'd be, oh, I can't believe he did that last time, and like it just seemed like some combination of like bad job and bad marriage for these guys, like this campaign. And it went on for a long time. And kind of like, oh man, all right, I'm just gonna play some low level stuff over here. You guys have a good time.
Yeah,
I'll go call my friend and ask him what that was about, and get all those stories from him. But like I don't know what like the convention scene is like or whatever. But growing up, and my D&D experiences were so spotty, just like a little bit here, a little bit there, until it's probably in my 30s, and coming back out of the military, and a bunch of guys I knew were playing 3.5 fairly regularly, and everyone was an adult at that point. But especially when you're younger, and like that one guy at the table decides that he's just gonna make an ass of himself and trying to ruin everybody's time.
That guy, unfortunately, that guy is in all games, all genres. That guy is not a new thing, and I see this a lot in the modern TTRPG space, of course, because now you can go and shout into the void a lot easier than you could in, say, 1978. That guy might get a bad reputation that would last exactly as long as Gen Con, and maybe at a couple of comic or game shops around his neck of the woods.
Yeah,
but he could move on. And nowadays it's like, your story goes to immediate internet fame. So for the pearl clutching types out there who are absolutely appalled that someone played a chaotic neutral halfling thief, stole all the stuff the party needed to win the adventure, and then went completely murder hobo and looked at you all and said with absolutely seriousness, that's what my character would do. That guy has literally existed since the days of the Braunstein, I would be willing to bet. And speaking of Braunstein, Sky, would you like to discuss one-to-one campaign time? I'm kidding. That is, no, we're not. Moving right along. But um, but speaking of cons, that's something. I know that there are conventions for writers for genres of different types. There's romance novelist conventions. There's science fiction writers conventions, that sort of thing. As a writer of prose yourself, do you do have you gone to those? Have you been to something like that?
The closest thing I've been to, Dave from DMR Books was nice enough to invite me. He had a table at this thing called Pulp Fest, and
Okay.
Pulp Fest was dedicated, obviously, to the pulps and all this old stuff. And I enjoyed that, and me and him just sat at the table and had a good time. And I think that would be just about the extent of it for me. I remember I got a review once. Where the guy said, like, yeah, he's really good. It's a shame he missed his audience by 70 years. So, like,
About you, someone said that about you.
yeah, someone said that about my stuff. So, like, um, I don't,
Thanks.
I don't want to act like I'm better than anyone. In fact, strictly speaking, I'm a lot worse. I'm dedicated to a thing. Um, which at the end of the day probably has a pretty low ceiling. Like it's in the publishing world right now is in a very strange place. And
Hmm.
but I don't have any um I don't want to go to like a any kind of convention or anything. Uh not like opposed to it on religious grounds or anything, but like I to me this stuff has always been um and who knows, maybe in a couple years I'll wind up at one and have a great time. I got
Yeah.
an open mind. um but like there's something about the stuff that I want to preserve from my childhood and youth, where it just feels very sort of intimate and special. And I just sort of enjoy that, and I enjoy um just the feeling of sort of I am a writer, believe me. As I grapple for the
The
word.
purity of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wish I could. I'll wake up at 2 a.m. with the perfect word about this. So like
That's
I'm
always the
not.
way, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I like to read old stuff and without consciously trying to, or like I sort of write in those older modes. And you can't help, you put your own stamp on it. And I think if you pumped it through an AI machine, they would go, well, this guy just wrote this, no matter what he wants it to sound like. So
Right.
like I have a couple good friends in online friends that I've met over the years of writing, and they like my one buddy, he goes to conventions all the time and he has a blast and stuff. um I don't know, like I'll keep an open mind. But and Pulp Fest was a good time. But I just don't I don't see it. I don't feel at all in step with the zeitgeist, like um don't feel at all in step with it. Conversely, like a couple years ago, I want like uh I had this friend that was really into metal, and I like metal too, but I don't read anything about it or go to metal forums or anything, and I don't have any idea what's happening. And my friend did, and he's like, "Hey man, Celtic Frost is coming." So, we went to go see Celtic Frost, and like it was a fantastic show, and I had a great time. And I felt, you know, like I was part of the zeitgeist there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it felt very natural to be in attendance that evening. And it's not something I would see. I don't know if I get that vibe at a con. And of course, it's good to step out of your comfort zone, and it's good to experience new things. So, like I said, I'll definitely keep an open mind. If someone says, "Hey, man, like you need to check this out," I'll probably go check it out. But the con scene, like it's one of those things that sort of became something that I don't really understand or recognize. Something like Gen Con, it's obvious what it is. But like with a comic book convention, I went to a comic book convention in like 1988 or something. It's the only one I've been to, and it was in this giant like hotel ballroom or whatever it was in
right.
Roseville, and like it was this giant room full of comic books, and
Mhm.
like I was reading a lot of indies and a lot of horror comics, and there's this comic called Dead World, and I had issue 1 and issue 3, and so,
I
like,
remember Dead World. Yeah.
we we, um, all piled in, and my friend's mom drove us down, and I had a couple bucks, and I had one mission, which is to get Deadpool or, Dead World number 2, and,
Mhm.
I walked up to this table, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you guys got Dead World number 2?" And we're like, "No, but that's the publisher right there." And there was just, like, an identical looking group of guys within an identical group of long boxes, you know what I mean? And I just walked over there and and I was too, like, shy to, like, engage with the guy about it, but, I got to he said thanks and everything and got, Dead World number 2, and that was it. And, like, it was all
Right.
100% about these stupid comic books in these stupid long boxes and stuff. And like and I think it's already peaked and going down with things like that San Diego Comic Con with all the Hollywood stuff and the celebrities and all that
Well, my
stuff. I don't.
hope, at the risk of sounding like an elitist, and I think there's a danger, whether you're into the metal scene, whether you're into comics, whether you're into TTRPGs, I think there's a danger, and I want your feedback on this. I think there's a danger where you can say, I want things to stay like small, like I
Mhm.
want cottage, I want
Mhm.
to, like if I go to a con, 1,500 people, and I want to be able to see you across the room and say, hey, there's Sky Hernstrom, I gotta go say hey to him, not like, well, I was at the con last weekend. Yeah, you and 29,999 other people. How could we have seen each other, um so I'm not being an elitist when I say this about any one thing, but honestly, you hit upon, you said the magic word, as it were, when you said San Diego Comic Con and going down. From my standpoint, for the good of a lot of geek hobbies, is if SDCC goes down, and as it's spiraling downward, sucks kind of a lot of the mega conventions down with it and disappears,
Mhm.
and we can get back to a con being a friendly place to hang around, you know,
Yeah.
um, I think that will do so much good,
I
absolutely so
think,
much good.
yeah, and like
Um,
I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to seem like if someone wants to go to one of those giant conventions and like go on a panel with some celebrities or something, and if that's what they want to do, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like and I don't I go to like one concert every 5 years now. I don't see a lot of bands. I don't follow stuff. I
right,
love the stuff I love, and I couldn't live without it. But like I don't have my finger on the pulse or anything. But like I always enjoyed bands in like, bigger than the shoebox punk show, but smaller
mhm,
than the stadium, like that, like, 100, 200 person venue. I always thought was like the sweet spot. And
yeah,
for some people, like they would rather go see, Metallica at like a 50,000 seat venue. And if that's
mhm,
what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that. And some people want the punk show where um, you there's no circumstance where you're not getting beer spilled on you in that venue, you know. And
Yeah.
that's cool too. That's super intimate and stuff. But like, you know, I always like that you know, it's okay for people to do what they want. You know, if you want to go see Queen in a stadium or something like that, stadium rock, you know, or if you want to go see you know, some kind of tiny local horrible band in a shoebox, that's perfectly all right. You know, like we all got our sweet spot, you know what I mean? And you know, my sweet spot is just it's not you know, not a lot of my sweet spot out there right now. And that's also very fine. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
doing my thing and that's all cool. But it's just interesting. And I think like you know, I don't want people to experience any kind of hardship or anything, but I'm definitely ready for this like corporate megacore phase of pop culture to be over.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
unquestionably, you're amongst friends here. Okay, I don't want to speak for anyone in the audience, but I don't think there's anybody out there who's like, no, Disney needs to buy more properties. They need to buy Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast and Bandai. Get all the anime too. Disney. No, none of us are in disagreement with you. At least I'm not. But I had to put this up here. Dungeon Minister has a great little con that he runs called Cleric Con. It's going into its second year. It got nothing but high praise from the people who attended it. I know you're in Pennsylvania, but you're a lot closer to it than I am, Sky. So it's called Clericon. It is a small, cozy, again, cottagecore kind of gaming convention, but.
I'll look that up.
It's well, you definitely should, but no, I mean, you know, you're talking about bands and venue types, and back in the early 90s, crammed in the space of like 4 years, I must have seen 30 concerts.
Yeah.
And I've seen everybody. I have seen The Who. I have seen Pink Floyd. I have seen I have seen Rush twice. I have seen Don Henley twice. I've seen Tom Petty. I have seen them all. At this point, if someone invites me to a show, I'm going to be like, are there going to be more than like 20 people there? Because I don't, you know.
Yeah.
That's a little too people-y for me, you know. But you know, I feel like it's the same with the gaming or the writing convention scene. Again, it's the idea of going and associating with people that you know love the thing. Like this happened twice. We used for like 5 years, my kids at the end of every summer, they wanted to go to Tampa Bay Comic-Con, and so we would do that. One year when we went, my daughter wore her Halloween costume, which was a character from I can't remember the video game that she likes now. It's a team-based shooter. But anyway, she wore her favorite character because we'd gotten her a little bit of costume from Amazon, and then she'd made the other parts, and she's so excited. And she wanted her picture taken next to this big sign, and I'm taking pictures. And someone walks over, just like stalks over to us and says, you know, well, that's, you can't take a picture over there. That's the, you know, the pay to have pictures taken with these people area. And you're trying to take a picture of them when you need to stand in line and pay. And I'm like, I'm 100 yards away from those people. And my daughter just went. And so while we're standing there having this conversation, one of the cosplay ladies like came over, not one of the official people at the convention, but just this very nice young woman in cosplay. And she and Rosemary got some pictures together, and Rosie was over the moon because the woman in cosplay had, dude, she had that full on, you know, this this took me like 200 hours to put together, and it's $3,000 worth of material level of cosplay. So Rosie was just over the moon that this woman would take a picture with her. but you know, the whole thing about don't take a photograph in that direction. And then there was a different year. There was a guy walking around, and I was just taking pictures with my phone, and there's some guy in not a great Spock. I mean, the costume was okay, but he was just like really tall. He was just like a really tall guy, and he's wearing a Spock thing. And I'm getting some pictures with my phone, and I see him hold his hand up, and I think he's doing this, right? And I'm like, oh yeah. And no,
Yeah.
$5 for a photo, $5. And I was like, I
Wow.
don't. Then let me step around you there, Pon Far. I got other pictures to take. So
I remember I was in the Army, and there was this crazy guy. He was one of the craziest guys I've ever known. And like he had like this kit, he had like a Camaro or whatever the hell it was, and he bought this light kit to make it into the kit car.
right.
You know what I mean? I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, that's wild, man. Where do you even get that? And then he busts out these photos. This is before everyone had like cell phone cameras, man. He had all these glossy 3x5, and it was like it was him dressed as Boba Fett. And I was like, what the hell's this, man? And he's like, I made a Boba Fett costume. And I'm like, why'd you make a Boba Fett costume? You know what I mean? Like that's pretty cool. But like, what do you do with it? You know what I mean? Like, why? Like, hey man, check this out. This dude has a Boba Fett costume. Like, why? You know, like, and like that was my first encounter with cosplay. This dude must, I'm sure he's still kicking around somewhere. Must be like, probably can't shut up about how he was doing it before everybody else. But I remember, and then like, I had like tell people, man, I met this guy. He made his own Boba Fett costume. Like, what? How? Like, I don't know. He just did it. And then like not paying attention. And then 10 years later, like realizing that like there's hundreds of people making all sorts of weird stuff, and they're all going to all these conventions.
Oh yeah. I mean, and now that you got 3D printers, it's like, yeah, I wanna go as Boba Fett. Let me just go to Thingiverse, download all the armor plates, print them, paint them, boom, you're done.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I still remember those photos. Like, what's the strangest thing I've ever seen, man?
Engine Joe charge you $8 for a styrofoam cup, a half full of ice, and a little bit of soda. You can't bring cans of anything. Yeah, it does be like that at convention venues. So yeah, I think you and I are on the same sheet of music there when we talk about a smaller convention scene, and that is that is definitely something that's preferred. Sounds like the prices at concerts, exactly, because it's the same damn people. Okay. It's the same people. You want to rent you need a stadium size space to hold your convention in, and you're going to pay stadium prices. They're not going to open the doors up for 100 people that like Dungeons and Dragons. It's like you get the church basement price or whatever, but I don't know. So what's the next big thing for you, Sky? We've kind of meandered and wandered. What's the next?
Probably buckling down, getting that novel finished. The second installment of the Song of Torn in this, and trying to crank out enough comics to collect into a proper collection, and hopefully getting the playtesting done for the post-apocalyptic rat game. If anyone is curious about that or wants in on it, they can email me. What is my Twitter? I think it's Frug73.
Frug73, but I'm raising my hand. I want in on that playtest.
Yeah. I'll let you know. I got a friend of mine, Brian Reninger. He's like a super genius, and he's going to help me out with that. And like I've got Frug and doing a black and white strip too. You'll like this. This is crude. There's his where's it at? there's Crude Castle just outside
Excellent.
McKeesport, PA. But yeah,
Digging it.
so like having a good time with these comics and stuff. Definitely a good time. And like, just want to make stuff, man. I just like making stuff. Just want to make as much stuff as I can. And you know, check out DMR books. Anybody's into to
Yeah,
actually
let me
DMR
put that
books.
link up there. You guys should definitely guys, let me tell you something. And Sky, I'm gonna blow a little sunshine here, but um your books, the stories are exactly precisely the right length to engage the mind in such a great way that they were such good reading during a time when I needed a little bit of distraction.
But
So
awesome.
they let me see, DMR books. Let me bring that
And
up.
Pilot Press.
Pilum, Pilum.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let me put this up here. Michael says, "Are you doing all the art for?" Yes, he is doing all the art for his comic. Is that not correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. It being such as it is, but yeah, like this particular one, just as an experiment, just did it all in pencil, different grades and stuff. And then the Frog comics get done with in a more traditional, well, it's all traditional, but like marker and multi-liners and brush pens and stuff like that. Here's a in this one the little, as my friend, I have a friend who doesn't read a lot of comics or anything, and I showed it to him, and he goes like, "Oh yeah, I like the little slug guy. What is he, a slug, right?" But so there's Frog and his friend Rodeo, and Rodeo wants a favor that Frog is going to take his Gammy Meemaw all the way to Ohio to see his cousin's new baby. So there's Gammy Meemaw right there.
Nice.
Yeah. So just that type of silliness, just having a good time. But yeah, those are all colored with markers. And like what happens when Frog collides with the Dune world.
I love that one. I saw that one posted today. Froon, man,
Yeah.
that was. You mean that's not Mountain Dew? God, that killed me, dude.
It's pure silliness, man.
Me. I love Froon. That was good stuff.
Yeah, and the post, like he has to go to Ohio.
Yeah.
But yeah, Froon that's pretty silly. All just I gotta like some of the writing is super heavy. So this is a good counterpoint to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, when you're out there, and we touched on this earlier, when you're out there putting down something like that is the literary equivalent of No Quarter by Led Zeppelin or any number of doom metal songs by doom metal bands, being able to snap back over and do something just light and silly like Frog has got to be a good tonic for the soul. And I love all your stuff. And I'm so glad that there are creators like you out there still doing things for the love of. And sure, of course, I mean, if I don't know, Penguin Books contacted you tomorrow and said, "Hey, we got a $7 deal for you. We're sending you a check." Of course, you're going to jump on that. You'd have to be a fool not to. But I'm glad you're down here in this end of the pool with us as creators. And guys, I linked in the comments the Pylon Press, DMR Books, and Skyler's Amazon page. Please check his works out. Please get a copy of Eye of Sonu and Thune's Vision for your reading enjoyment. Kindle Unlimited, if you're into electronic books. And Kabuki is hitting me because I was just about to say, if anybody else has any questions, now's the time to ask them. You fan of Richard Corbin?
Oh yeah. And in fact, one of my first introductions to him was like on the covers of these original Fighting Fantasy game books.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, that guy's he's out of this world. He like I haven't gotten around to him insofar as like, you know, sometimes you obsess about an artist and you look about the technique and stuff. Because his stuff, he had a really, really fine hand. Like like uh it's very precise, very extremely well rendered. Um, you know, huge attention to like shadow and form and everything. So one of these days I'm gonna like just go bananas trying to figure out exactly how he did what he did, because he was something else.
Yeah, yeah. Corbin is just phenomenal. So anything else, man? Because we've been running our mouths for like 2 hours. I know you got to be exhausted, dude. You're over here. So is there anything in parting? Anything we didn't cover this time? Anything you wanted to ask me?
No, I think we covered. I think about to where am I welcome. I'll be back. I my goal is to be your Paul Lynde, just the center square.
Well, I look forward to it. We are going to have you back on the show, and if you can do a passable Paul Lynde impression on the next one, I will be
work on it.
impressed. But I'm sorry,
I got to work on that. Yeah, like I don't want to.
That's fine. That's fine.
I remember him. Do you remember him on the Here's the how many people are going to tune out of confusion here, but you remember the Kiss Halloween special?
Oh, vaguely, dude.
Yeah, you got to look him up. He was on there. It was hilarious.
Yeah,
that's on YouTube.
I will. That sounds. That sounds like it's up there or down there with the Star Wars holiday special, but
it was better, but
better as a matter of degree, right?
Yeah. It did have Paul Lynde, so
it did have Paul Lynde. All right. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for stopping by tonight. You are going to be back sooner than you were this last time. I'm just, whether you want to or not, I will hack into your mainframe and turn your camera on, and you'll have to sit here and talk to us. So, but anyway, Sky, thank you so much for being here tonight, guys. I put the links up to his stuff on DMR, on Amazon, on Pilum. Check him out. You can follow him over on Twitter. You're Frug73.
Yeah.
Frug73 on Twitter, where you can see his comics posted up as frequently as he likes to. So we're going to let you go. Thank you again, buddy, for being here. Always nice to talk to you. Everyone, I am about to scoot out of here. Speaking of post-apocalypse, we have, of course, we've got our Gamma World game tomorrow night. And if you haven't already, guys, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications to find out about this live stream, our interstitial videos, and all the fun stuff that we like to bring you. But regardless of what you do, however you do it, please keep your eyes peeled for the dreaded owl bears. Peace. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night. Love you all.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in this little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action fix to dancing things, just take me to the show.